and welcome to this episode of Hustle and Pro. I'm your host, Kelly Walker. On this episode, us Texans are going to get schooled on Australian rules football, thanks to our guests, James and Terry. Welcome to the studio, guys.
Thank you, Kelly. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, this is fun. So we're Instagram friends, right? And so we've messaged each other, and you obviously realize I don't know a thing about Australian rules football because I don't even know how to say it correctly because I've mentioned the sport as the wrong sport, which we'll talk about in a little while. So I wanted to get you guys in here and teach me, what I don't know, what I need to know, because it's fun. We have a team here in this area. So before we talk about the North Texas Devils, I want to know about you guys specifically. What's your background in sports? And so I guess maybe, James, let's start with you.
Absolutely, yeah. So I've been sort of playing Australian football most of my life, played at a few different clubs growing up. It's one of those sports that, in Melbourne, where I'm from, everybody essentially plays Australian football from the age of about 5 onwards. So I played at a few different clubs, transitioned to rugby for a period of time, rowed for a period of time, and then ended up in Sydney with a team up there where I ended up coaching for a few years after a bit of an injury that put me out of playing. And then travelled overseas and, came to the US and found that there was a local amateur league, so I got involved here as well.
Awesome. What about you, Terry?
So I was introduced to footy maybe 3 or 4 years ago, but me primarily growing up, I played basketball. So I played basketball in high school. That's as far as I took it, but besides that, I played in a lot of rec leagues here in Dallas.
I was going to say, I picked up some accent for James, but I wasn't sure where I'm hearing you from. So you're from here?
I'm from Arkansas.
Okay. Okay. Arkansas.
So, I don't really have an accent because...
you do. You
do. Really?
We all do. Sure.
Because my father's from Arkansas, my mom's from New York, so I kind of go in between both of those. But primarily, growing up, there's traditional sports, basketball, football, a little baseball, but definitely no footy.
Footy.
No footy.
I like that. Footy. Is that what all you guys call it?
That's what we call it.
I mean, Australian rules football is kind of a mouthful.
Right.
So,
yeah. It's a lot.
Aussie rules or footy we can go with.
Aussie rules. I like that too. Okay. So what it's not is American football, and it's also not rugby.
Correct.
Right? So I guess let's go there. Let's sort of tell me the similarities for people like me who are used to American football. Mm-hmm. What are the similarities with these mainstream sports that Americans know? And then I guess what are some of the main differences? If that's a lot, but I guess start there.
Let's unpack that a little bit. I think that the most similar thing to sports that you've known already in terms of American football or rugby is the ball is somewhat of a similar shape. Yeah. But as you can see, it's a little bit of a different shape.
Yep, I'm holding one now. It's more rounded at the ends aren't as tapered off. More eggy.
Correct, yeah. That's about where the similarities end. And so when I do describe this game to people who've never seen it before, I actually ask people to visualize a combination of soccer with basketball.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
That's the reaction
we're
I normally get.
We're on a grass field, whatever you call a pitch field, whatever. So you're on a field with how many players are on your...
So we've got 18 players on each side on the field at one time.
Oh, that's a lot.
So it's 36 guys running around.
So that's soccer plus basketball.
That's soccer plus, exactly. And in terms of, the reason I sort of describe it like that is because it is a 360-degree game. So there's no onside, no offside. People aren't lining up against each other as you'd have in rugby or in American football. So that's probably where that basketball similarity comes into it.
So when you go to start the game, your players are mixed on each side of the field. Okay.
Correct. And when we do start the game, the other basketball similarity is that there's a tip-off. Although we bounce the ball or throw the ball up, so it's a little bit different. And the two tallest guys will generally jump up, and then they'll do that tip-off
to get possession.
Correct.
Okay.
And then the other interesting thing, though, that always throws people is it's not played on a rectangular field, as rugby or American football would be.
Okay.
It's actually played on a cricket pitch. Cricket field. So it's a large oval field, almost circular.
Is it common, though, that you're converting a soccer field into this for you? Or does that not, size-wise, does that not convert? Yeah, so the average field length, because the fields actually vary in size, there are some dimensions that need to be the same and regulated on every field. But the average field's around about 185 yards long. By about 155 yards wide. Wow, that's huge, right?
It's a huge
you do have 18 on each side, so, there's a lot of players out there.
Yeah, Yeah, so a lot of running.
Okay,
running
so I'm
a lot.
visualizing that. All the players, the round, that's crazy big. So what's the goal situation? Is there an actual structure that's a goal or an inline or anything, end zone?
Yeah, so there's a goal. You got to kick that through the goal.
I told you, I'm like basic here. You have to like spell it out
that's
for
where we want to start. No, there's a goal, and you actually have 4 posts. So 4 upright posts. There's no horizontal post, just the vertical posts.
Okay.
The 2 in the middle are much taller, and when you kick it between those 2, then that's a goal. That's worth 6 points. Then there's 2 shorter posts on the outside, and when you kick it between the large post and the short post, that's worth 1 point.
So everything's like scoring opportunities or kicks, not you don't run anything through
You
those.
don't run anything through. No, it's all
Okay.
kicking. Yeah.
Can every player, I'm jumping all around here.
That's okay.
First, I was going to say, can any player kick it, or are there designated players that are allowed to?
Any player can kick it.
As a player, are you an offensive specialty, defensive, or is everybody everything?
So you are sort of more specialised, but everybody can run everywhere. So you don't have sections or areas that you have to stay within. So you will have guys that become better defensively because you do need to learn some of the skills to be a defensive player. And then you're going to have some guys which are much better. And keep saying guys. I should say guys and girls because there's a lot of women who play as well. But a lot of the people who play, you'll end up having some of those specialties depending on what you're good at.
Do you have positional names?
Yes.
Okay, what are your positions?
So I play ruck.
Ruck?
Ruck, the ruckman.
Okay.
So it's kind of like he said, at the beginning of the game, it starts with a jump ball. So if you play basketball, that's why the transition was a little bit easy for me.
Yeah.
It's like doing a tip ball.
Sure.
So if you play power forward or if you play center, it's pretty similar because you're boxing out and you're just pretty much trying to get advantage by tipping the ball. So that's what position I play.
How tall are you?
I'm 6'6".
Okay. You're tall also, James.
I'm 6'5",
Yeah. Are most of you guys tall and big like this, or
Nope.
is there room for smaller guys and girls?
There's room for everybody of every
Everybody.
size.
Okay.
Yeah.
What position do you play?
I don't play anymore, so I'm the coach of the team now.
Okay.
But
What is your old position?
I used to rotate between playing in the ruck, where Terry plays, and also a position called centre half forward, which is kind of
Center
forward
half
of
forward.
the centre of the
Okay.
ground.
Yeah. I mean, center mid in soccer, there's similarities.
Similarities,
sure.
yeah.
But anybody can score. Are there guys on the team that are like the known scorers, that are commonly going to be the ones that are scoring?
Yeah, you've got a position called a full forward, which is kind of almost like your striker, if you will, in soccer. So they're not the primary scorers or the only scorers, I should say, but usually in teams they're kind of the primary scorers or the better kicks. But they have a guy on each side of them, guy or girl on each side of them called a forward pocket. And so they sort of sit down in those little pockets of that egg-shaped ground. And they're more sort of what we call roving the ball. So when the ball's in contention, they're the ones who can pick it up pretty quickly and sort of move a little more agility than say the full forward, and then can kick the goals from there as well. So the full forward's kind of a run and catch and set shot, whereas the
Agile,
rovers
probably
Yeah.
agile players.
Yeah.
Is there anyone goalie like or safety like, or protecting those posts? Last man to the
Like on defense, right?
Yeah,
There's kind of like so I don't know all the positions like him, but I would think it's not a full forward, it's a full back.
back.
Yeah, full back. So that's kind of like a safety.
that their job is like last man back behind, before they
Right.
kick it.
Because kind of like he said, the opposing team, they're trying to kick their goals, so they would have somebody like 2 individuals on each side, and so you'll have somebody kind of like shadowing them. You could call them like a free safety or someone like a cornerback. So when they're trying to kick it to their team, you're trying to disrupt that whole situation and kick it back to your team.
Think about a basketball full court press. That's kind of, you've got your full forward and your full back, and you've got a forward pocket and a back pocket. So each of the roles have a opposite in terms of the defensive role, and those guys are playing on each other the whole time.
Yeah, to mark up and guard or whatever. You might have said this, points-wise. Is it 1 point, more points for the shorter posts?
So it's 6 points through the big 2 middle posts, and then 1 point between the big post and the little post.
Oh, okay.
So I like to think of it as like football. Like if you kick a field goal, it's worth 6 points. But if you had 2 individuals' goals besides the field goals, those are worth 1.
What's a normal score of a game? Like, your average. I mean, I'm guessing it's not 6-6. Is it like 30? Like, is it, what's your scores look like?
If you're thinking about the pro league in Australia,
Sure.
you're probably talking around 80 to maybe 110
Oh,
per
lots
team.
of scoring. Yeah.
So it's fast-paced, lots of scoring, pretty dynamic in that way.
Leaning back to the basketball side from soccer side. Okay. Oh, wow. Yeah, that is dynamic. So then tackling. When you said somebody's roving the ball, they're going to be, if it's a loose ball, they're going to pick it up and run, or you throw it to each other, you kick it to each other. Can you do either? And can anybody tackle anybody? And how's that work?
So there's 3 parts there. So you can't throw the ball.
No throwing.
What you
no
can
one?
do is you can pass it with your hands, and it's called a hand pass.
Okay.
Funnily enough, the naming convention works.
Okay.
But the way that you do that is you have to punch it. And so the way to describe it to somebody new is think about a volleyball underhand serve. And that's sort of the motion that you want to do as you're passing that ball.
Okay.
And you want to hand pass it in sort of tight quarters, really short, that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
when somebody catches the ball from a hand pass, there's no stop in play. It's still free-flowing, still moving really quickly. The other way to kick past the ball is to kick the ball. And so there's a lot of different styles of kicking. You don't punt it like you would in American football, so it's not a spiral kick. You do something that we call is a drop punt, which means the ball flows in a different way. And you can get really accurate with those, up to sort of 40, 50 yards and hit somebody no problem.
That's far. Yeah.
But when you catch a kick, you can actually stop, and you have a small reprieve where you can actually sort of structure yourself a little bit. So it's about 10 seconds that you get.
Oh.
Unless you're having a shot for goal where you get 30 seconds.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
We're getting all that?
A little bit. I mean, I think fair catch in football, like if you're receiving a kickoff or something, you have time. You're not going to get crushed if you call
everybody got to
fair
back
catch.
up.
Yeah. So you're saying if you catch a 40 or 50-yard kick pass,
Yes.
you aren't going to get slaughtered immediately.
Not necessarily. Yeah, you've got a few moments. And once you catch that, you can handball it on someone else straight away, or you can move on straight away if you want to, if your team's getting in the right position.
It sounds really fast, right?
very fast.
Are there stoppages, like whistles and fouls, and like you think there are?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of rules, possibly too many to get into for this call.
Right.
But what I will say is, going back to your question around the tackling piece, so you can tackle people. And when you do tackle, it's between the shoulders and the hips. So there is a very specific sort of area and method in which you do tackle people. Protects their head and protects the legs as well.
Knees and stuff, yeah.
But that means if you tackle somebody and they are dispossessed of the ball and they don't hand pass it or kick it and they drop the ball, then you get kind of a free. And so it's a turnover to your possession. Yeah. But the converse of that is if you get tackled in a inappropriate way, too high, too low, or pushed in the back, then it's your free. So there is a lot of stoppages in that way where they're blowing the whistle saying, oh, that's this or it's that.
Yeah. Yeah, that part reminds me of lacrosse, how there's constant foul stoppages, but it's not a full stop down.
Correct.
Like a lot of players can just keep going, self-start. Some fouls or whistle starts, but it just means the offending fouler has to just get behind the person with the ball to give them a clear run at it. So.
So that's what happens in our game when there's a catch, which we call a mark, or when there's a foul, which we call a free kick. The person who's offended or the defender from the mark has to stand on the spot and raise their arms up in the air.
Oh wow, shaming them. I did it.
Exactly.
I did it. That's awesome. Okay. I mean, there's a lot going on, but it's not, it mixes a lot of different things I'm used to, but it all sounds like very typical stuff. One thing I don't know, I'm looking at this awesome jersey that I'm going to wear and I love it. But what are you wearing as players? Do you have pads? Do you have helmets? Is there any protection at all? Or is it just jersey?
Mouth guard.
Mouth guard?
That's about it.
Yeah.
Yep, that's about it.
Wow. So it's a lot of big dudes out there punch, passing, kicking, and tackling each other with no football pads on.
Correct.
But like you said, the rules are set up to where you guys are not going to be head to head for all intent. Like you're not supposed to be hitting heads. Heads can probably hit the ground, but you're not going to have a lot.
Right.
Do you have a lot of concussions and head injuries?
No, I mean, that's one of the great things about it, the physicality. But it's not too physical where you can't get up and go to work the next morning.
Okay.
You're gonna wake up and be sore, but you're not gonna just So that's what's great. Like you said, you cannot be above the head and below the knees. So I'm a tall guy. I definitely don't want to be hitting my knees or I'm done.
Right.
So it's usually like mid tackles or a little throw down to the ground, but nothing too
Just
rough.
to make you drop the ball. I mean, that's your goal.
Right.
In the other sports, your goal to tackle is to take them down, right? A knee down in football or something, body, knee, whatever, anything down. But here, your goal isn't so much to get that player on the ground. It's to get the ball out of their hands. Is that right?
It is right. You still will take a player to the ground, and you can still take a player to the ground. But yeah, primarily you want to dispossess them of the ball.
Okay. Terry, how
Yeah.
old were you when you learned how to play Australian rules football?
I was 38.
Okay.
38.
That's what I was thinking. Like growing up around here, I'm thinking you played all the other sports you mentioned. So I'm like, when did you learn this? And not that that's old, but that's later on to learn a new sport, right?
Right.
So like, why did you just pick it up?
So I was going to Lifetime Fitness. I was recovering from knee surgery, and a guy by the name of Brandon Miller, who's local in Dallas, we were taking a class, and he just came up to me one day like, man, you're tall, you're athletic, you'll be perfect for Australian football. And like everybody else, I'm like, what the hell is Australian football?
Yeah.
Never heard of it a day in my life.
Oh, you hadn't even heard of it?
Never even heard of it.
Okay.
And so
Wow.
every class, he kept coming up to me. I was like, what does this guy want? Like, he was like, man, just check it out. You'll be great. I'm pretty sure you'll make nationals. I'm like, what is nationals? Like,
Wow.
and so one day he's like, man, I'm just going to send you a video. Just check it out. So I watched the video. I was like, all right, it's like jump ball.
Yeah.
He showed me a video of the ruckman. He's like, just come out and play. And I love competing. And so I went out and I went to a practice. And practice was just okay, nothing too exciting. But that first game, the first time I got hit, that's when I realized, yeah.
This is good?
I like footy. Yeah, I like it.
That's awesome. Okay, so that brings me to the North Texas Devils. So how many guys are there? Mm-hmm. Where do you guys play? When, what's the seasonality of this sport here? I mean, it's probably different than in Australia, but what are we talking about here with this local team?
Yeah, so we're playing in a competition called the US AFL, which is the United States Australian Football League. There's around 50 teams in that from all across the US. We're actually the fourth team based out of Texas. So we've got a team in Austin, Houston.
Wow.
There is a team in Dallas based closer to downtown Dallas. And then there's us who are representing more northern DFW.
Right.
I think the whole sport is an amateur competition. So there's no pros in this. Everyone does it volunteer. We seek donations and sponsorships and anyone who wants to come and play can play. But that also represents its challenges, I think, being a national sport because, Terry and I were talking about this before. When somebody's new to a sport they've never heard of, and then you've got to say, by the way, you've got to get a flight to, Chicago or somewhere else, it makes it a little bit cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
So for us, we want to, it's such a phenomenal game that we want to grow the game locally and see how many people we can get engaged and grow. So hence why we started this team, and we can then play, more local Texas-based teams and get a team bus to various games and so forth. So that's kind of the genesis, I think, of where the North Texas Devils came from. We started during COVID, which, is also the most challenging thing. But again, it's because nobody was traveling to get to other games. We now have around 58 people that have signed up.
Wow.
It's been pretty quick growth. We got a team app that people sign up to, and supporters can sign up on that as well.
Cool.
And we have around about 40 people that have signed the waivers to actually be able to play. So I look at that more as the number of how many coming out.
Because you're not playing until those are signed, I'm sure.
Correct, yeah.
Playing in games anyway.
We're getting about 20 to training at the moment. We train in Plano.
So it's probably not a normal season right now. Nothing's normal with restrictions and things. But when would you play? What does that look like?
Yeah, pre-COVID, it would normally be sort of a May to October timeframe, which is something I'm getting used to because it's actually a winter sport in Australia.
Okay.
And I mentioned cricket grounds before. In cricket, they play. In summer they play cricket on the ground, and then in winter it converts to a football field. Here you've got a lot of cricket, especially here in Frisco. A lot more cricket's coming on, and I believe there's 3 more cricket grounds being built in Frisco at the moment. But because we have to play in summer because it's a national comp, and the northern states can't play in the middle of their winter, then we can't. We clash with the cricket teams, and so that's why we can't really use those grounds as well. But unfortunately, we play in the Texas heat, which is not what the teams, the sport's designed to do.
Is there any indoor option? Too big.
If you can find me a
Too
field.
big of a field, right?
So nice.
Well, if we ever get that indoor, Allen, I don't know. Maybe it's not indoor. I thought the cricket facility coming to Allen. For my mind, it was going to have some indoor parts, but I don't know. I don't even know what I'm talking about.
I've got to look into that then. Yeah.
Who knows? Things have all changed so much in the last year or two. I'm not sure if that's even being built. All right, how can people find out and go follow you guys and all that good stuff?
We've tried to keep it as simple as possible. So any social media, it's just NTX Devils.
Yep.
So whether you're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, NTX Devils, the website is also ntxdevils.com. And you'll be able to find us that way. Or you can send us an email to info@ntxdevils.com.
Okay. What else am I missing? I mean, I feel like we covered all the baby basics of what Australian rules football is.
I would
is
just
there,
like to say, for athletes, another reason why I love footy, because like I said, I played basketball, played in plenty of basketball leagues, plenty of flag football leagues. It's not organized the way USAFL is. Like you said, there's 50 teams throughout different states. So not only do we play like local teams, like in basketball leagues, you might play 6 or other teams or whatever,
Right.
but you don't get to travel from state to state. So if you're really competitive, this is definitely something you want to try out. Because not only do we play teams in Austin, Tulsa, we've been to Arkansas, we've been to Denver, LA, and he hasn't even touched on like our playoffs, which is called nationals, where it's usually in a great state where teams from all the U.S. come, and even guys come from Australia. It's this great big event. It's 3 days? It's like
2 days, yeah.
2 days, and then after the whole national tournaments, we all get together and just have a great big
I'm
party.
sure there's some fun had.
It's a lot of fun to be had. A lot.
Very cool. So when you think of like recruiting people who are interested, I'm guessing you want players that know what they're doing. Obviously, if they do, great. But seeing somebody like Terry who didn't even know and have a background in it and caught on and loves the competitive nature of it. So you welcome those kind of guys too?
Absolutely. We welcome anybody and everyone who wants to try out. As a new startup club, we're really just trying to build out the team and get as many as we can down.
Yeah.
We're starting to sort of focus on some other sports teams. We don't want to steal players from other teams, but there's leagues, you mentioned lacrosse before, they sort of wind down relatively soon, so some of those guys are coming across. We've got some rugby guys who are trying out. We're doing a mixed rules sort of exhibition match against the Irish football team, which is a whole different type of football, on June 5th, and so who knows if any of those players will come along. But again, basketball, gymnasiums, you name it, we're sort of recruiting people.
Yeah. Is there an age? Can anybody play?
Anyone over 18,
Yeah.
just from the waiver perspective. We will allow people 16 to 18 to train, to learn the game, but they need, obviously, parental consent.
Sure.
But 18 plus to play.
What's your average age? You got a range of everybody?
We're a little older right now in our club because I think we've got some more experienced dudes who have played for a while. I think we're looking around the early 30s as an average age.
Well, and if you talk about people who are going to be able to travel and get on planes and make that part of their lifestyle, I mean, most of us can't do that when we're 21.
Yeah, exactly.
So you gotta have a little bit of maturity and life behind you to be able to get up and do that. So
yeah, that's why we want to grow it more locally,
Yeah.
so that more people can get involved at a younger age. But it's also why we rely so heavily on the sponsors and the donors and things, so we can then subsidise travel when we need to for people who may not be able to afford it otherwise.
yeah, and you've got some awesome sponsors. I'm looking at here. If you want to mention them, you can.
Absolutely, yeah. We've had a few Australian businesses come on board. So here in Frisco, many people who are probably listening to this will be very familiar with the Aussie Grind. So they came on board. Ange and Louis down there are absolutely fantastic, and they're one of our first sponsors. We've also got a couple of Australian-owned businesses that are local to this area, Frisco, Plano area. So Kandian Flooring Design and Guru Contracting are both Australian-owned businesses locally. Many people will probably be pretty familiar with Grandscape that had their grand opening fairly recently as well. So they've jumped on board for our first season. Three Nations Brewing, based out in Carrollton, have come on board. And then also the Helping Friendly is a CBD company, which is based out of Denton.
Awesome.
And so they're on as well.
That's a great mix. Well, I've learned a lot. Hopefully our listeners have too. There's a lot more to learn, I know. So we'll keep in touch with you guys so that when you're playing games and everything's up and running.
I wanted to reveal one more thing to you, if I can.
Yeah.
And people won't be able to see this, but you can comment on it. You asked the question before, what are we playing? And so we actually play Australian rules football in relatively short shorts, but in tank tops.
Oh, okay.
So
these aren't jerseys. These are
These
shirts.
are not jerseys. These are our team travel.
That's got a real basketball look to it.
So
yeah,
similar-ish to basketball, but a little different. Obviously a little more durable because we're tackling and things like that as well. But that's our...
Probably more fitted.
Much more fitted, yeah. So that's our jersey.
Cool.
Terry hasn't seen that yet. We haven't revealed it to everyone.
Nope, not yet.
Breaking news.
I'm not a big fan of the short shorts, so I usually wear some compression shorts or pants underneath, but...
Short shorts are coming back in.
They're definitely short.
If you drive by any local high school, all the guys are wearing, those shorts are getting small
It's
again.
funny, yeah.
It is funny. It cracks me up.
But I like to mention one thing.
Yeah.
If you're young enough and you pick up the game quick enough, there's an opportunity for you to potentially turn pro, right? and go in Australia?
Yeah, so there's been some exchange programs that have happened over time
neat,
with people going over. What I'll say is that the only American in the Australian Professional League right now is from here. He's from Highland Village.
Seriously?
Yeah, his name's Mason Cox. He's 6'10". He played for Oklahoma City basketball, and in 2014 they did a combine. The Professional League did a combine in the US and picked him up and took him over.
When he was done playing for the Thunder?
I think during...
No, that was college, right?
Yeah, college.
College,
wow.
yeah.
And
They plucked
he went
him.
over, I think he spent about 4 years learning the game. Had never even heard of it or seen it before.
Okay.
Spent about 4 years learning about it. Now he's over there playing. Yeah.
So, wow. Yeah, Highland Village. That's funny. I mean, one of our MLS players is from Highland Village. Funny little pocket there. Well, we were talking about earlier, all the athleticism that comes out of this area. Very cool. Well, I've learned a lot, and I appreciate it. And when the games start happening, maybe we'll get y'all back in here, and we'll do round 2. Teach me some more once I've seen it in action, so I can understand it even more. So, James Henderson and Terry Clark with the North Texas Devils. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening to this episode of Hustle and Pro. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts.